Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich Mellon. And with me today, all the way from the far side of the country, way over on the East Coast, is Gabriel Harding. Gabriel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I mean, it's pretty cool that I was a listener, one day, and now I'm on the podcast. It's pretty cool. So
Well,
thanks
it's
for
not
having me.
everybody. It's not every day that, somebody who's a 15-year-old trapper reaches out and says, that he'd like to chat. I thought, well, that's pretty cool because you know what, I'm a big supporter of youth in trapping.
Yeah.
It's an important requirement. If we don't have the youth, we're not going to have trapping for very long.
Yeah, definitely. Just coming into it, there's definitely a lot of people that helped, getting me into it and even gave me gear, traps, and it seems like a lot of people really like just having new people in it because it definitely is something that not everybody does, nowadays,
Well,
especially.
There's a change that's come about in trapping, and I think more so in Canada than in the U.S. because here in Canada, I don't know about you're in Prince Edward Island. I should tell everybody you're in Prince Edward Island,
Yeah.
that little island off the coast of Canada, home to giant bluefin. But in the rest of Canada, it's all broke up into registered trap lines, so it's easy to talk about what you're doing and how you're doing it because nobody's going to trap on your trap line anyway. It's not so much in the US that way where people can, because everything's open, right?
Mhm.
I guess so. I mean, that's one thing that's changed. When we first started doing this, we first started doing the TV show and not so much podcasts came in 4 or 5 years after the TV show, but people were like, you're telling all the secrets. And I says, well, why? What difference does it make? Right? I mean, if we can't be successful, if we can't help one another be successful, then we're just we're going to rule over a dying occupation, and that's not going to be good for anything. Because whether people like it or not, trapping has to continue. Trapping is extremely important as a conservational tool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's what I've been told. Like a lot of people are just saying well, I know a lot of people around here don't think there's any money in fur and selling it, and I think there's still definitely some money, but a lot of it, what a lot of people are doing, I know that there's still some people that make quite a bit of money off fur, like yourself, but a lot of people make their money just doing ADC and stuff like that, where their main focus isn't the fur, it's taking the animal off the property, so it benefits the property as well as the species itself as well.
Well, every animal has to be managed.
Everybody
can identify with the coyotes and wolves because they eat their chickens, eat their cats, attack children, that kind of stuff. So that's a big bad wolf that's easy to identify, getting rid of. But the muskrat is probably one of the most deadly animals out there because it carries tularemia. And we had a giant crash in the 80s in Alberta from muskrat tularemia, and they were gone for a decade, but it wasn't just them that were gone. I mean, a lot of other animals can get sick from it because they carry the disease and it passes on through the water. Raccoons, are the number one carriers for both rabies and distemper. Cute little raccoon and all, but they all need to be managed.
Yeah.
They all need to be managed, and as you pointed out, that is ADC is becoming bigger than what the fur trapping was. Fur trappers themselves, I think, have to go at it a little different, in a little different direction. I was talking with Mike Matney and from Non-Grip Traps, and he was talking about what now a beaver is worth to him. A beaver is worth $300, and when he in the late 60s, I think it was, he bought a truck with beaver, and that was $30 beaver. And everybody says, well, how come beaver's still worth $30? Well, it depends on what you do with it, because when you take that beaver and go to have it tanned, depending where you send it to be tanned, it could be $90 or $100 to get a beaver tan. It's that labor that has gone up. The beaver hide itself was still worth $30, but it's the labor to do anything with it that's gone up. And that pickup truck that was, I think he paid $4,600 for, or whatever, now is $146,000, right? So I mean, there's we've got to change and catch up with the time. A lot of people, talk about there's no money in fur anymore, and that they're not going to do it. But I prefer to look at it as just means that whether it's it's trapping and selling fur, or whether it's building houses and that, you have to adapt and carry on, or that same business plan isn't successful for forever, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk though about you now. You're 15, just about 16, you told me.
Well, getting close to 16. So
okay. I know. When I was 15, the day after my 15th birthday, I was getting close to 16. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to get on with the world.
Yeah.
How did you start in trapping?
Well, I mean, I guess I've always kind of been like interested, not necessarily in trapping, but kind of in, I don't know, I was always kind of fascinated in like guns and all that stuff. And so, so like and watching YouTube, like watching people like yourself and I know Coon Creek Outdoors, and you've probably seen him on YouTube, and that really got me going, like kind of like, fired up. And I didn't really know much about trapping, or like I'm not, none of my family members really trap. I mean, I think I had like a grandfather that did like snared rabbits and stuff, but nobody that actually like trapped, but yeah, just watching you. I remember watching you on winter days when I was like, man, I really wish I could be trapping right now. Like, I was like, I really need to get my license. And here, I don't think there's an age limit on, an age minimum, I should say, on getting your trapping license here. Obviously you have to carry, be able to dispatch your animal or whatever, but yeah, just watching you. And then, I actually, before I got my license, I sent a letter to my uncle in New Brunswick. I believe, yeah, New Brunswick, and asked him if he knew anybody that had any traps. And I didn't really know that you need, like, I wasn't super well versed with licenses and all that stuff. So I didn't know. And I just asked him. He ended up buying me a dog proof and a couple number 1 long springs. And so
good uncle Hank, you hold on to him.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, before I knew anything about, licenses or regulations or anything, I just was kind of just setting the dog proof around the house, kind of ended up catching cats pretty much. That's pretty much what I ended up catching. But and then I, I wanted to, actually kind of get a little bit more serious about it, and started learning more about it. And so I took my dad and I applied to take our do Trapper's Ed.
Oh, okay,
education.
cool.
And so we did that together, and that was a couple of years ago. And we took that, and I learned quite a bit from that course, but I also learned quite a bit just off YouTube, to be honest. Like there's a lot of good information on YouTube, but there's also a lot of faulty information as well. I believe there's a lot of guys, and everybody has their own opinion, and everybody has their own way of catching things, and that's just the way and that's fine, right? Like everybody has their own thing. But
I think the biggest separation between Canada and the US probably has to do with the laws and the traps that are acceptable or that are legal, not even acceptable, that are legal. Mm-hmm. A lot of the US states, Washington, Colorado, they're all just cage trapping and that kind of stuff. So that's a more restrictive gig than what we have. We are allowed killing traps and killing snares. Are you allowed killing snares in PI?
Yeah, we can't use like rams here, but we can use like free hanging snares that are lethal. Yeah. So
wonder why. Do you have any?
I think it's just personally, I mean, I think it's just more of a people looking into it, like people that aren't trappers, the public looking in, seeing a massive spring hooked to a snare. It's a little bit more intimidating than just a snare hanging on a branch, which couldn't be farther from the truth. Like in terms of lethality, like lethalness. And
hey, Rich here. Sandy and I are pleased at the rapid growth of our exclusive community, Trapping Inc. at locals.com. We created the community to connect more closely with our fans, friends, and supporters without the interference and censorship of social media companies. Because this community is subscriber exclusive, there is no censored photos, shadow banning, and deplatforming, as happens on Twitter and Facebook. Trolls are non-existent, as not a one will spend a nickel and put their money where their mouth is to protest on a paid site. You know it. We are steadily moving all Trapping Inc. YouTube videos and podcasts as quickly as time and bandwidth allow. We're tickled and surprised to see how large of library we must move. As well, we are sharing articles on trapping and guns and shooting. Our new TV series, Married to the Hunt, videos are here too. Hours and hours of never before released to the internet hunting and fishing from around the world. TrappingInc.locals.com will be the exclusive home of all Trapping Inc. content from the past and into the future. What else is there to do? Well, there's a forum for everyone to post pictures on and interact. You can message us directly on TrappingInc.locals.com, as well as interact with all the other subscribers. These are all people with common interests. Get in here. This whole venture is about taking the Trapping Inc. TV community to the next level, building a community of shared interest and interacting with all of our friends. Who knows where we can go from here? Just go to locals.com and sign up for a free account. Then search for Trapping Inc. and subscribe for $5 a month. That's it. Go to locals.com to open a free account and then subscribe for $5 a month to Trapping Inc. Help us spread the truth about a way of life and the responsible, ethical management of the wild resources. TrappingInc.locals.com. Now back to the show.
So are you allowed then kill springs on the free hanger?
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah, I believe we are.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't used any springs. I've mainly just been using just cam locks.
Right.
And like I was telling you last season, so 2020 was, my first real season, I guess you could say. But like the spring before that, so the spring of 2020, so like February, March, just when it was, the tail end of, within like the trapping seasons, I ended up setting that dog proof that I was just telling you about, that my uncle set me. And by that point, I was like fully licensed to be a trapper and I had my license and all that stuff. And I ended up catching a few raccoon doing that. And that was like just crazy coming up on it. And I remember checking him in the dark, like it's still like early morning because I was, doing school or whatever and had stuff to do that day, but it just coming up and shine the flashlight and seeing those eyes, glare back at me. That was pretty cool. So
yeah, we always say it's like Christmas Day every time you walk up in a trap. So Christmas Day might happen 300 times in a day for me, and
yeah,
walking up with traps and snares and that kind of stuff. So this was your first full season then?
Yeah, just the season we just had. Yeah.
And what animals are available to you?
Pretty much, we don't have wolves, we don't have marten or fisher, we don't have otter, but pretty much everything else, unless
so
there's
muskrat,
something
beaver, coyotes,
yeah, muskrat, beaver,
skunk.
coyotes, fox, yeah, skunk. Actually, the season for skunk here, there's for some reason, and I don't know why, because I'm not sure if that's the same way here, but we can trap skunk all year round without even a nuisance permit or anything. It's just in the book. There's no closed season for skunk and squirrel. So you can trap those. I could go out right now and trap those. I don't know why.
I mean, those particular rules exist everywhere. I mean, we have animals like that too here. And when I was a kid, red squirrel was a fur bearer. So I mean, you couldn't shoot them or anything else. That was only a trapper that could kill them in any way, shape, or form. And then that changed, and now you can actually, you can shoot them if you want to. But squirrel just actually got valuable. They were the red squirrels hit $2 up. We're averaging like $2 in the last auction. That was pretty cool.
Like, so right now, yeah. Like last, I was actually kind of surprised about, because I did ship some fur, and I was actually surprised. I ended up getting $17.40 for a raccoon. So,
oh, that's nice.
I think that was pretty good. I think I did pretty good on that. And then like I ended up shipping 2 beaver. The bigger one, I think it was a large, sold for like $24 or something. And the small didn't sell, but I ended up shipping 1 weasel as well, and ended up getting like 2 something for him. And and both of my coyotes, I ended up shipping 2 coyotes, and they both sold for $55, something like that. Even though one was blue and one was like mid-season, but they both sold for the same. They must have just grouped them together. I don't really know how that would really work, but
They often they just look at the fur, right? How thick
yeah,
the fur is,
yeah,
and you give it a snap and look into it, and you can see how thick and heavy it is, that kind of stuff. It's an art form. Like those guys handle thousands of
yeah,
coyotes in a day, and they are
crazy.
so quick at it. It's like you wonder how they can make a judgment call that fast, but I think it's mostly just it's muscle memory, like there's just
Yeah.
boom, their brain tells them something and they just keep going. It's quite the talent. Just looking out my window here and out of my office, and I see I got a white-tailed deer out here, and she's huge. She hasn't dropped a young one yet.
Wow. We don't have deer here. We don't have deer
No?
or moose or bear at all. No, just
Well, how big is PEI? Like,
it's not I don't know. I feel like it's not as small, but you can drive from one end to the other in like probably like if you're just driving, I'd say probably like 2 to 3 hours or something.
oh really? Okay.
But like I don't know, like we never really, my family and I, like myself, we never really driven, like just we're gonna drive from one end to we've never done that. We never driven the whole thing, but yeah, it's
Well, I'm in the wintertime, I'm 3 hours from my door to the door of my cabin. And-
yeah, like that's one thing that's definitely different from other places. Like my dad was telling me, like when he was a kid, he used to go to hockey practice and it would take him a couple hours to drive to hockey practice, But here I can drive like pretty much most of your driving, like it's like 20-minute drives, 20 minutes to town, 20 minutes back. And
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, you don't have to drive very far to get places here.
And how many people live in Prince Edward Island?
I think something like 200,000. So it's fairly populated, definitely.
Your
But
largest city is,
Charlottetown. Yeah, Charlottetown's the capital. So
and how many
and
are there?
I couldn't tell you.
No.
Probably I don't really pay attention to those numbers much, but probably I don't know. There's quite a few people that live in Charlottetown.
But you live mostly in a rural area then?
Yeah, out in the country. Yeah, I live in a area, Belfast. That's where I live, and so but yeah, I mean it's not like any type of wildernessy or anything, but it's fairly out in the sticks.
So are you then, is it like agricultural, partially agricultural, or?
Yeah, like most of PEI is actually fields,
Okay. Yeah,
There's
the potatoes, right?
yeah, potatoes, big thing. Blueberries is, fairly good, and we used to grow
Oh, cool.
tobacco here, but nobody really grows tobacco here anymore.
People still smoke it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And other stuff too now, but
Yeah, it's all legal. Yeah.
yeah.
uh, so if I remember now, this is going back from when I learned about PEI as a kid, probably younger than you, which is getting back into the dusty annals of time, but something about red clay, right?
Yeah, dirt's pretty red here. Yeah, we got like a lot of iron in it. I think that's what it is. And
Where
yeah,
our clay or gumbo is all blue and gray.
okay.
And but does it dry up really hard when the
Yeah,
clay dries?
it can dry pretty hard. Yeah, and then some, like I said, but like a lot of the places are potato fields, so it's fairly airy soil. Quite a lot of it, but there are definitely hard spots, and that plays into trapping. Like a lot of people here, footholding isn't very big here, like for coyotes and fox. When people think, I know like Nova Scotia guys are fairly big on footholding, but yeah, here a lot of people are they snare quite a bit here just with the free hanging. And I'm gonna be honest, I was when I went through my trapper's ed, he was kind of trying to like shy me away from trying footholding, and I really wanted to try footholding, but he knew quite a lot. But I think it's honestly comes down to, I'm not sure if and I'm just saying this, but I don't think even in the past people did a lot of footholding here. So I don't think like most trappers weren't shown how to foothold, at least properly. So that's why I feel like a lot of people are like, ooh, footholding, you know. But yeah, I know a lot of people hear snare and footholding. Yeah, the clay, it's really nice to pack around your trap, but that can also be a bad thing when it gets really wet. So
I think with footholding, I think there's still that connotation, right? And everybody's worried. Back in the days, we used to call them the leg hold trap, and they were the reason that we had so much trouble with the anti-fur people and all that, and the reason that ahitas happened, and that we brought in, you know, offset jaws and rubber traps and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes too, though, excuse me, sometimes those old fellas, they don't bother telling you something that they think is less productive, you know, and it's hard to compete with snaring, especially in our country where it freezes. You know, I mean, you can still set footholds for coyotes and wolves and all that, but you know, your check laws, you know, factor into that as well, you know, and then all of a sudden you've got a lot of travel to do for that. What are your check laws?
So it's for snares, we have to check every 48 hours, and anything like a restraining trap that's meant, you know, to hold the animal alive, that's every 24. And then for some reason, we can check every 3 days for water traps like that are designed to drown, or like a conibear. I don't know why it's not 3 days for snares, but I was told it's just because, I don't know. It's just people are more. I think quite a few of the laws are meant to protect the public from thinking badly about trapping in a way, if you know what I mean.
We call it ballot box biology out here, where basically you're worrying about emotion, the sensibilities, where when a trap kills, why would you have a check time on it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially if it's cold, like if for southern, like for people in, you know, in like southern states, I could see them wanting to check them more frequently because of like spoilage and stuff, because that you know, your fur could go to waste very easily. But definitely, especially like, you know, in Alberta and more wilderness, you know, New Brunswick, I don't see why there need to be, you know, a certain check law. It's definitely, I think it'd be up to the trapper to decide for killing stuff, obviously, for killing for.
You don't want it to go to waste. I mean, that's what's important. I mean, but you also, if you're running a big trap on, there's only so often you can get around, you know, and there's a point where you're counterproductive, especially like wolf sets and that. I mean, you can bother them too much. I set my wolf sets up so that I can view most of them from a distance, right? You know, I might have to stop, you know, on the trail and that, but I don't have to go in and look at each one of them to see if there's something there or not. I can usually get fairly close and I can see what's going on. You know, if you see me walking in and through my wolf set, it's because you know, there's something there I want to show. You know, as far as I guess maybe they mandate check laws because some people aren't exactly you know, ethical, and they do let things go to waste. I know I have friends down like in Alabama, and their raccoons there's a meat market for them, and so they use pretty
good meat,
the dog proof on them so that they're live when they get them in the morning, and then they can kill them, and then right away they deliver them to the meat market. You know, and that's totally different than what we do. You know, I mean, one, we don't have any raccoon here, so I mean that's and nobody would ever eat a marten or a or a coyote, you know what I mean? So
it's been done.
Oh, I know people that have done it once. But they don't do it the second time. So I mean, I don't understand check laws on something's being killed, other than if you have, you know, a coyote snare in a ditch or something, and people see something dead there and it lays there for a while. You know, that can give us all a black eye, but that's more a best practices thing. That's more a responsibility, you know, being responsible, and that's the kind of thing that you always have to be aware of, you know. You know, when you talk about that, you know, one of the issues you have is a lot of the pictures that, trappers will put up on the internet, and that, I understand the joys of seeing a coyote in the foothold for the first time, and you walk up and it howls at you and all that, but people get owly if you take and you film all that before you dispatch the animal. And I guess I can understand that, because they feel that the animal is suffering. They're not suffering. I mean, you get a few years under your belt and you'll walk up on coyotes that are sound asleep. They'll be in the foothold and they'll be sound asleep. They're just sitting there waiting, right? They're being restrained. And I know I got friends who trap in Michigan, and in Michigan they're not allowed lethal springs or lethal snares. Pardon me. Okay. So a
lot of the states are like that.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah, exactly. And they're very short snares as well, so that they can't entangle and kill that way. And so they walk up and the animal will be laying there sleeping, right? It's just it's waiting for whatever. I mean, animals within minutes, whatever has happened to them within minutes is the new reality. It's the new normal. And like we've all been saying, going through this virus thing.
Oh no, don't mention that.
Is that a bad deal back there? out east?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a different world.
And we'll be back to normal, no time flat. That's the part that I get a kick out of, is so many people are saying, "Oh, we'll never be the same again."
The world has definitely gone through stuff in past worse than this, and it's turned around. So,
well, the odd part about it, and this probably isn't something that a 15-year-old wants to talk about, but the odd part about it is that they all seem to think that the world wants a reset, that we're all going to quit driving and flying and living life. Wrong. As soon as
I want to keep driving and flying.
Better believe it. I'm on the first plane smoking. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm getting the hell out of here and going off traveling somewhere. We've canceled a lot of trips on account of this stuff, and it's just it's already been talked about too much.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
With the, I was surprised that you have a check law for water for drowning sets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't make the laws, that's for sure. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know why. I mean, like we just said, I mean, it's a lot of it's just for that, so you don't see something. But for sure, water. I mean, nobody really goes and looks in the culvert, especially in wintertime.
Okay.
But go ahead.
When do your seasons start? When you talk about the wintertime, when do your seasons start?
So for October the 15th, we can trap coyotes. We can't snare them, but we can trap coyotes and we can trap raccoon. And then November the 1st, water stuff opens up. And then we also have this weird thing where if you're trapping raccoon October before November the 1st, you have to set 3 meters away from the waterway so that, you don't catch a mink. I guess that's what they're trying. Anyway, yeah. And then so November 15th, basically everything opens up at that point. I'm not sure if Fox opens up November the 1st, but then, yeah, November the 15th, we can start snaring. And yeah, basically November 15th, everything's open. And snaring ends probably sometime in February. I think maybe February 15th. I have the book over there. I could check for you, but
it's okay. I just asking.
Yeah.
So you have a fairly substantial season then.
Oh yeah. You can pretty much trap raccoons from October 15th to March 31st. So
sounds like you have a nice raccoon there. When you're talking about your price on your beaver too, your beaver must be the black Eastern beaver.
Yeah, they're black. Yeah. I was talking to one guy, and he went up to. He's a great guy. He showed me quite a bit this season for fur handling and trapping as well, and went and set some beaver stuff with him. But he was saying he went up to fur harvesters like North Bay or whatever, and they were kind of giving them like a tour or whatever, and he looked at one of the beavers, and they're like more of a red color. I'm not sure if that's what yours are like.
Yep.
And he asked, like, he was like, what is that? because here he thought he didn't know what it was, but here, yeah, beaver's definitely blacker here.
And you must have you have a lot of muskrat there.
Yeah, quite a few.
So about a third of them would be black too, then, right?
I guess. I mean, I never really paid much attention to the colors, but yeah, they're pretty dark.
Okay. Yeah, we don't get. I've never caught a black muskrat in my life. I know people from like the Wisconsin dells and the New Jersey swamps and that kind of stuff. And about a third of them, they ran 1/3 to 2/3 black to brown. But we occasionally catch black beaver out here. If I catch 50 beaver in the winter, one of them might be black. That's about it. And the black is very pretty, very, very pretty.
Yeah, it really is.
When so are you trapping on your own land? Are you trapping on neighbors' lands? Are you doing like ADC or what? How's it working for you?
So I do some trapping. My family really doesn't own much land at the moment. I think we own about 4 acres, but luckily there's a dairy farm right behind me. You probably can't see it, but they let me do. They're really great for giving me permission to do stuff like kind of hunting, trapping, fishing, all that stuff. So they've got quite a bit of land behind our place and behind their place, and they just bought, I think, 300 acres or more. And so yeah, they're mainly trapping on their land quite a bit. And then I have another guy, my dad's friend, and he lets me trap on his land. He's a blueberry farmer, so that's where I caught my first coyote on a blueberry field. So,
well, that's cool. I've picked a lot of wild blueberries. They grow wild here especially in the sand and that. But I've never been in an actual domestic blueberry crop. I think Canada's like number 1 or number 2 for blueberries. It's blueberry exports as well, right? And I guess I didn't know that there was some of that back east as well. I know BC is big, like the Okanagan and that. There's a lot of blueberry crops and that over towards Vancouver, and like driving by them, it's pretty miraculous. But
hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here. And we all have our idea of the perfect morning. You know what I'm talking about. For me, the perfect morning starts with the aroma and flavor of freshly brewed Old Smokes coffee. Studies have shown that just the smell of fresh coffee can boost brain activity. No kidding. Well, that's certainly no secret to me. I can barely talk before that first cup. Just ask Sandy. I'm a dark roast man, and Old Smokes Coffee's darkest roast, Stout Maple, is what gets my day in gear. Extra dark, it's strong, aromatic, and smooth. Gets me revved up for whatever the day throws at me. Old Smokes roast their coffee over wood fires, the old-fashioned way. Wood roasting takes more time, much longer than modern hot air roasting. Slow roasting over wood takes the bitter out of the bean and imparts a heavenly taste and aroma from the wood smoke. Old Smokes makes a roast perfect for each person. There are 5 roasts, from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Did you know the darker the roast, the lower the caffeine content? It's true. Caffeine is a volatile oil that evaporates with roasting. The lightest roast has the most caffeine, and the darkest roasts have the most flavor. Right now, you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH. That's RICH. And get 10% off your entire order. Pretty simple. Just go to www.oldsmokescoffee.com. That's OLE smokescoffee.com and use the promo code RICH. That is promo code RICH for 10% off your entire order. And now let's get to today's show.
When you trap these situations in, I mean, footholding is going to be much more a much more targeted system than, are you guys allowed to use baits for snaring?
Yeah, so we're allowed to use bait, but when you're setting, so it's kind of weird, and there's a lot of loopholes and stuff, and a lot of things that are kind of like almost gray areas. But yeah, so for snaring, we can use bait, but when the bait is exposed, you have to have your snare set 50 meters away.
Okay.
And if your bait is like they say not visible, undetectable from the air, I think is the wording they use in the regulation. So that gets kind of some people, I'm sure, there's probably quite a few. I'm sure every conservation officer probably has a different understanding or opinion on that, but
I think,
yeah.
I think most of them, it's whether the a true attempt was made. Like, I mean, I've trapped in places or been with people trapping in places where it was had to be not visible, and so they would cover it with spruce boughs or whatever, right? And so that it wasn't visible. But the whole idea was birds, right? But I mean, birds is the biggest reason why we use bait. Because we get I dump a ton of bones and butcher scraps out there, and the magpies and ravens are there the next day, and they're kicking up a fuss, and that brings the coyotes. But we set our bait out in an opening and then go into the trees to set the snares and that, just so that we don't end up catching birds. There's a lot
so
of
there's no like the bait 50 meters away rule there.
No, nope.
Is it kind of just you can do whatever kind of thing?
No, but I mean, everybody knows that if you're too close, you're going to catch birds, and you don't want to, right? We don't have eagles that stay here during the winter, not very often anyway. Sometimes the balds come back in early in February if the weather is warm enough, that kind of stuff. So bald eagles might show up on your bait, sometimes golden eagles, but I mean, I'm back from it anyway, because why would I want to have, here's the thing that most people don't think about. If I have my snare or my foothold or whatever right at the bait, or within a stone's throw of the bait, and the birds, of course, are on the bait and everything, I get a coyote in it, the coyote, so it's a killing snare, the coyote dies in that. What do you think those birds are going to eat? They're going to pick on that frozen carcass there, or they're going to go after that warm coyote? I don't want to lose my fur. I mean, our Western coyotes are worth a lot of money, and so I mean, we take care of those situations. It's only people that inexperienced people that will set too close.
Yeah, that's definitely. You definitely don't want your coyotes to get picked up by birds, and that happens anyway, doesn't it?
Sometimes it does. Mostly. More frustrating than that, though, is catching a coyote out on a wolf bait, because the first thing the wolves eat is the coyote.
Right. Yeah.
Unlike the eastern wolves and coyotes that get along and produce coy wolves or whatever, our version of a coy wolf is a bunch of coyote fur and a couple wolf turds. That's a coy wolf. When they're done processing them. Yeah, I get and I mean, so I don't set snares very often around a wolf bait for coyotes. You will have coyotes come to every wolf bait, no question. Sometimes you've got them sneaking in, and you'll be able to pattern them if the snow conditions are right, and you'll know that they will come in a certain way and all that, and then usually it's going to be the trail that leaves the bush the closest to the bait, because they're going to want to stay under cover and out of way, and they'll play with the wind and that kind of stuff, just so that if wolves are on the bait, they don't get caught coming in, right? It's pretty interesting in those situations. Yeah, you can put a snare out, but you got to be careful. It's got to be where if the wolves are on the bait, and that when that coyote gets caught, they pick up on that coyote struggling or whatever, and it only takes a minute or two. Well, that's all the time they'll have it ate before it's done struggling.
that must be annoying when that happens. But one thing I want to mention, what's kind of weird is that there's no limit to set footholds away from like bait piles or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can just go up and set a foothold right there. But a lot of guys, like especially there where you have like registered trap lines and quite a lot of land that you need to maneuver, it wouldn't really make sense for a lot of people to just set a foothold by your bait pile, like, because a lot of guys just use snaring. I haven't seen anybody that does that specifically, sets footholds around their bait piles.
I know of people that do, but they usually will set up away from it. It'll be 50 to 100 yards away, and they'll set out like a peephole. Set up, and so because the coyotes will go service that peephole on their way in and out of the bait, and it's actually a very productive setup. And another place is when they drag off a hide, because we use butcher scraps, so when deer and moose season that's going on, I go get a dump trailer full of butcher scraps, and right away the coyotes start dragging away those hides. There'll be a half a deer hide or whatever. They start dragging them into the bush and all that. Well, that can be a good place to do a flat set, a foothold flat set next to one of those, because they're already used to the fact that they drug that hide back there, and so it's become like a mini bait pile. It's away from the large bait pile. It's in the bush. I mean, you could go around and throw stuff in the bush, but you're never going to know when they're going to find it or whatever. This they've created, and so it's a situation that you can take advantage of in a flat set. It's kind of like, it's in a funny way, it's like the hay bale set or the tire set, where you have a tire sitting out in the pasture, whatever. Well, every coyote or fox is going to go pee on it, right? Because it's a feature. In the middle of a field, it's a feature, and so they got to go check it out. Well, that's a great place to make a set as well, right? You can put a flat set or a dirt hole set inside that spare tire lane there, a lot of people are very successful that way. So that's the kind of the situation that where we'll set footholds around bait and that. But it's obvious that you can put your foothold right up to the bait that they're worried about birds. If you're setting a foothold for a coyote, you're going to want 3 or 4, maybe even 5 pounds worth of pan pressure. Well, no bird's ever going to set that off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where birds, I've seen a lot of birds get caught, a lot of crows and ravens, that kind of thing, get tied up in snares. I released one time a bald eagle. We were over visiting with people in Saskatchewan, and the guy had a heart attack. He didn't know what to do. Well, the only thing I was scared of wasn't the eagle. Because I could throw a coat. We ended up throwing a Carhartt coat over top of it and holding it down. But he was in a wolf ram. So at some point, if he struggled, it was going to go off. And I mean, it's not as deadly lethal as what everybody thinks, but the best time for it to go off is when everything's stretched out, right? So if you've got the if it just comes loose and everything's not stretched out, well, that compression, there's a difference between it being knocked off of the trigger and it being compressed off and going, right? So when a coyote or whatever gets into it, it's being compressed. That spring is being compressed, and then it just lifts off, and it's under pressure. But if it were, the animal is there and it were to be knocked off, well, it's not it's still tight like this, but it's not compressing the back part of that spring. Well, then it is explosive, right? And that's the situation we were in with this bird. Closer I get to it, it starts deal. Well, it starts flopping around, and it gets it hangs that ram up on a little bush or whatever. Well, it could actually knock that off, and then you had about a 4-foot range of death there when that thing goes around. But we got him out of there and let him go, and he flew away, and it was no big deal. I mean, if you don't panic in those situations, things usually work out. When do you do like dirt holding or foot holding, or do you have just blind set? I mean, what's when you're foot holding, what's your favorite set?
I like the dirt holes. I have set flat sets, and I didn't really have much luck with them, but that's probably because I wasn't trapping. I didn't have that too many foothold traps out, but I really like the dirt holes. And I find that we were talking about bait, I had just some raccoons, like from some of the raccoons that I caught, and I was, because once you're done skinning them and you can give them back to nature, and the coyotes will come along and eat them.
Yep.
But and I was setting probably maybe 50 yards away or something. I had a dirt hole set, and I ended up catching 3 coyotes off that one dirt hole set.
Oh, good.
And so that was pretty cool. And then so like foot holding, dirt hole set is like so far my favorite, and I haven't been doing it for that long, right? But so far the dirt hole is my favorite. And I have tried snares. Like I have set a few snares, and I had somebody show me how to do those, and I ended up catching one coyote off snare. And I actually have kind of a funny story. Like, so here you're supposed to, so we have I'm assuming it's the same here, but the same there in Alberta, but you have to use like a certain size cable, right? Like there's a minimum here. The minimum is 5/64, and a lot of people like using, like most people use 5/64 just because, I don't know, I guess it's a smaller, like less detectable, I guess you could say. But I had one coyote, so I was coming up, I was, doing a tree line. I set like because it was on a field, right? And so I was setting that tree line, openings that they would go in and out or whatever. But so I don't know how many snares I had there. Probably like, I think I had like 12 on that tree line. And so I come up and it's late, it's dark, and it gets dark pretty early in the winter. But yeah, so I first saw, I was just praying that I had something, because I wasn't successful, up to that point. But I ended up seeing, like, the big circle, and all my blocking and whatever is all messed up there, and there's no coyote there, and the snare's gone. And so the coyote must have been in there, and it's not, he ended up being pretty fine, but but he ended up chewing out, right? Because if I'm not sure if it was just the way I had it set up, but sometimes they do chew out. Right. And so he ended up chewing out, and I ended up seeing that first, and I felt so crappy. Like, I was just like, oh, I have a coyote out there with, a snare on its neck. That's not good, and whatever. But I ended up catching him a couple snares down. The same coyote. And at first I didn't know it was the same coyote, but and then I saw that he was like, oh, he has 2 snares on him. I was like, that's double points.
Well, part of that, here in Alberta, we can use any, like, I don't know that there's a minimum size. I know on power rams, there's a 3/64 that you can use.
Okay.
On the coyote ram. A lot of people use 1/16. I use 1/16, but I use kill springs on everything. I really like the lights out snaring kill spring. He's got a monster spring.
I was listening to that podcast yesterday, actually.
Yeah, he's got a monster
pretty
spring and a nice setup. And I like the fact that it's a system, and I'm a tool guy. And so when it becomes a system like that, it's very attractive to me. You end up with situations though where we have discovered, especially like with coyotes, is that our coyotes have very, very heavy fur. So by the time they're hitting their winter heavy coats and that, we're doing a lot of stuff to try and overcome that fur so that snare does the proper job. I got a snare right here I can show you. Look at this. This is like an inch or 2 1/8 by 2 1/2. That's actually off of a coyote. You can see how it bound up there. You can see there's a little bit of fur in it and that kind of stuff, but you can see how this particular lock puts a kink in the snare, and then the big spring is over here. And well, it's not even fully extended, but that's how tight that tightens down. Well, that's what you need to be able to compress those carotids. The carotid arteries is what needs to be compressed, and then they just gray out and they go down, and and it's over with. But we have so many problems where you were talking about a cam lock, where that cam lock goes in there and right away it picks up some hair in there. So sometimes hair gets stuffed in between the cam lock and the cable, and of course then it's on those teeth. Well, then it can't dig in, and it can't bind, and it can't do its job. So until we started getting really serious springs and like a spring in conjunction with this kind of a lock, and that it was things were hit and miss. And here in Alberta, we're going more and more towards everything being lethal. Like you're not going to be able to have a snare that isn't lethal here soon. We want to get the job done and over with. So we had the problem with, you could end up with catch 5 in a row and boom, 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 and before we started using kill springs and that, and cam lock was with those tooth cam locks was the big thing. And then you might have 2 in a row that shoot out. And that was because of that situation, because you end up where it's not being able to lock down far enough to get the job done. And that's unfortunate. So we've done, FIC, the For Institute of Canada, is studying all these kill springs and snares and all that. We're going at it the scientific way to make sure that we can be as humane as possible with in these situations. You never know what's going to cause a situation, because the biggest thing when all of these traps are looked at, when it's the body grip traps and how quickly they have to do their job, the fact of it is that they go with an 80%. Okay. My 120 Belial that I use on marten have to kill that marten in 120 seconds 80% of the time.
Okay, yeah.
That because you can't take that factor, that animal, you can't factor that variable. Is that, is that animal, what condition that animal is in when he hits that trap or hits its snare. So they go with an 80% factor, which is, I think it's a fair on both sides of the equation, both for the animal and both for trying to develop a system. We like with these big kill springs, I use 1/16 on coyotes and I use 3/32 on wolves. A lot of people are going to the 1/16 on wolves. I've had mixed success with that, but these big springs are a bonus. And because he's got a system that supports that big spring, that was always the problem we had before with the forerunners of that, like the Seneca, and that was, you always had this whammy that you had to wedge in there and then it would fall or it was droop and that kind of stuff. It became frustrating, and a lot of people then just ended up going away from the springs because of that. But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, though, that you feel bad when something like that happens. But what you have to do is just look at what happened and what can you do different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I was thinking about maybe switching to 3/32, or maybe just make sure put more time into thinking about where your snare is and what kind of entanglement is there, because entanglement is
okay. So if you're not using a kill spring, how long are your snares?
Mine's like you mean, because so the snares that I had weren't very long, but I had them on like obviously an extension to wrap them around a tree or whatever.
Okay.
Fairly long. I'm not sure exactly, maybe like 5-6 feet maybe.
Okay. See, now my snares are 5-6 feet, and then they go on an extension after that.
Okay.
So you're short in comparison. For on when I'm doing free hanging as compared to doing something like the lights out snaring, which has its own system and everything. But what we found in our years of snaring coyotes and that is that if you put them on, if you had a 5-foot snare and then put it on another 5-foot extension or whatever, was to anchor it up high.
Okay.
If you could anchor it onto a tree up at your head height or whatever, that helped the resetting, because
pulls up higher in there.
Well, what happens is that coyote, when he hits in that first, it's like, do you have a dog? Do you have a pet?
We used to, yeah. We have cats and stuff now though. But
okay, the first time you ever put one on a leash, you know what kind of circus that is. They just go,
yeah.
It goes strange, and they're jumping up and down. Well, that's what the coyote does the first time that snare tightens up. Then he turns around and he backs away from it and pulls. Okay, and that's when he'll reset it up here and get right in here nice and tight. If you're anchored up nice and high, then that's going to pull his head like this. It's going to help it slide. That's what we learned in the years before we started getting into the kill springs and all. Right?
Okay, that's interesting.
Was to anchor nice and high, and of course, the longer it is, the better chance you have for entanglement as well. I mean, entanglement helps you a big pile.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
So, were you just blind setting on trails then? Was that what you were doing, or did you have bait there?
No, there wasn't any bait. I mean, I did have some coon buckets down there, but that's not really considered bait. But yeah, no, they were just openings that they might happen to, that when they're traveling, that they're curious and go in through there or whatever. You'll see little spots and stuff, but no like serious like that's a trail. It's just more of, and it's definitely snaring's definitely, I would consider trapping an art as well, but snaring for sure. Like there's guys I'll be walking, and like when I was shown and I'd be walking, he's like stop and then looks in and he like points out this. I'm like, oh yeah, like something you'd never really realize. But coyotes are definitely, in fox too, are traveling that for sure. Just
another
going
thing
in
you
and
can
out.
do too is get down on your knees. If you get down on your knees and look at it from their height, then the world changes. Your whole aspect of the world changes. Do you have a lot of coyote there? Like, are coyote a problem or?
They can be definitely a problem for some people. There's not like a ridiculous amount of them, but we definitely have quite a good population of them. We have quite a lot of fox as well.
Okay.
So
Do you have mange and shoulder mites in your population there?
there is. I've never caught. I don't think it's like that common, but I could be wrong. It might just be my area, but I haven't caught one that had mites or mange or anything yet. So
That's good. Don't get it started.
Yeah.
I had two baits last year that I ran, and I took 20 off of one and 21 off the other.
nice.
The one bait I had two that I couldn't skin, and the other bait I had two that I could skin. it's just
Man, yeah.
yeah, because I mean the bait, of course, were all the infected animals. That was an area that I hadn't trapped before. Nobody had been trapping, and that's just what happens. They get overpopulated, and they pass it between one another so much, right? Coyotes aren't as bad for that as wolves are, because I mean, if one wolf in the pack gets sick, they all get it, right? And
Right, yeah.
but when you get overpopulation of coyotes, then it adds up too.
Hey, Rich here. Sandy and I are pleased at the rapid growth of our exclusive community, Trapping Inc. at locals.com. We created the community to connect more closely with our fans, friends, and supporters without the interference and censorship of social media companies. Because this community is subscriber exclusive, there is no censored photos, shadow banning, and deplatforming as happens on Twitter and Facebook. Trolls are non-existent, as not a one will spend a nickel and put their money where their mouth is to protest on a paid site. You know it. We are steadily moving all Trapping Inc. YouTube videos and podcasts as quickly as time and bandwidth allow. We're tickled and surprised to see how large of library we must move. As well, we are sharing articles on trapping and guns and shooting. Our new TV series, Married to the Hunt, videos are here too. Hours and hours of never before released to the internet hunting and fishing from around the world. TrappingInc.locals.com will be the exclusive home of all Trapping Inc. content from the past and into the future. What else is there to do? Well, there's a forum for everyone to post pictures on and interact. You can message us directly on TrappingInc.locals.com, as well as interact with all the other subscribers. These are all people with common interests. Get in here. This whole venture is about taking the Trapping Inc. TV community to the next level, building a community of shared interest and interacting with all of our friends. Who knows where we can go from here? Just go to locals.com and sign up for a free account. Then search for Trapping Inc. and subscribe for $5 a month. That's it. Go to locals.com to open a free account and then subscribe for $5 a month to Trapping Inc. Help us spread the truth about a way of life and the responsible, ethical management of the wild resources. TrappingInc.locals.com. Now back to the show.
How big are your eastern coyotes? Like, what would they weigh? What would your average coyote weigh?
I've never weighed one before. I guess I never really thought about it. I hear yours are fairly small compared to like in the States or some places in the States or whatever. I don't know, probably like average, like 30 to 40 pounds, probably average.
I will take a 24, 25 pound female every day of the week, because she'll bring me $150 every time.
Yeah, they have nice like silky fur, right? Like the females, the younger females are like the best.
Well, no, an adult female is just fine. What we have though is the fur is much silkier. Like I've looked at eastern coyotes compared to western, and the eastern is much coarser, right?
Yeah,
and ours are fluffy and soft. It's really quite different. But
that's crazy. Yeah, I was watching like 9/11 Ryan. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. And you've done stuff with him,
Ryan Demchinsky.
But when
yes,
when he's skinning, like you can just see it's just like a fluff ball on their and it's like wow, like, and I think definitely our eastern coyotes are pretty good. Like they're a good eastern coyote in terms of an eastern coyote. They're not like a western coyote. But they're definitely a lot better than like people in like Kentucky or something like that.
Well, you talked about the dollars you got for them. I was you got good money for them. Like
okay,
I mean, you did well on them. Like that was that's some of the better prices I've seen for Eastern. But a lot of coyotes that show up at the auction and that do come out of the South, and I mean, it's just a matter of they don't
hurts
live
the average.
Pardon me?
Like it can hurt the because that would be a lot, since it's a lot of the southern cows that are shipped, it would hurt like the overall average probably, like when you look at it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't have the weather to get what we have, you know.
Yeah, because they
Like,
don't
I
need
mean,
that fur.
they prime up based, you know, the thickness of the leather, the prime based on the amount of daylight, and that happens really early here. And and then it takes cold in order to get thick, to get that to go from semi to heavy on your rating. And that's the cold, and we end up with that. So I mean, it's they don't have that, you know, they just don't have the weather, so they're never going to be able to have that you know, get that same kind of grading. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we have talked for just about an hour here.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah,
And
it was great. Yeah.
I'd like to chat with you again one day, and you got to take up bluefin tuna fishing, because I want to go bluefin tuna fishing.
Like I said, like I was telling you, like I've done some deep sea fishing, like with the family or whatever, cod and stuff, like chucking, getting mackerel for bait, and then using that to catch the cod or
You
whatever.
live on an island. What do you mean you've done some?
Well, like it's definitely like, it's either you own a boat or you pay money to go on like a charter or something, right?
I've flown 30 hours one way to go fish deep sea fishing. Well, sir,
Man.
it has been a pleasure. You have a YouTube site, right?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Give everybody a shout out how they can find you.
Okay, so my channel is fairly small, so it's kind of hard to find. But if you go to YouTube and search up My Side, that's just all one word, and then space bushcraft. I do quite a few bushcraft videos. I'm trying to do some more trapping as well. But if you search up My Side bushcraft, you should be able to find me there. Find my videos and then check out my channel if you please, and that'd be great. But
that's perfect. That's perfect. You know what? I'm happy to talk with you, and it's so nice to see a nice young fella, and you know, you make me feel better about the world. Tell your mom and dad they're doing a good job.
Will do.
Thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you had as much fun as we did, and maybe we'll see you down the line.
All right, we'll see you.